So Angus Heifer Select is a genomic selection tool to help inform the selection of Angus replacement heifers in a commercial Angus beef enterprise. It's available for females that are straight bred Angus, so by straight bred Angus greater than 87.5 or 7/8 Angus content. So Angus Heifer Select, how it works is based on a DNA sample. So we collect a DNA sample being either tail hairs or a tissue sampling unit or a TSU, which is an ear notch. Then we can go through based on that and provide a genetic prediction of the animal's breeding value for 9 important maternal growth and carcass traits. Also a genetic prediction for total breeding value associated with an overall star rating. An optional is also, if we have DNA profiles on the sires of those heifers, is to provide sire assignment. So if heifers have been joined in a multi-sire breeding program, we know who the possible sires are. If we have DNA profiles on those, then we can use the DNA to identify who the individual sire of each heifer is. Likewise, we also have the option with Angus Heifer Select of adding BVD testing as well. So it's an example heifer select results. If we look here at a group of heifers which have been tested with Angus Heifer Select, we can see we have the year of birth, the sire ID, identifying the individual sire of those heifers, along with their genetic predictions for the individual traits and total breeding value and the Heifer Select stars. So why test with Angus Heifer Select? And there's a range of different benefits with which we might be able to use the Heifer Select results. Ultimately, what Angus Heifer Select does is describe the genetics of those females, and that enables us to go through and make more informed female selection decisions and to identify those females which have the genetics which are most closely aligned with our breeding objective. So that enables us to, if we're going through our replacement heifers, to ensure those heifers which we're retaining within our breeding program are those with the highest genetic merit. Or likewise, we can, if we're culling those females, we can make sure we can cull females with inferior genetics or those genetics which are less aligned with our breeding objectives. In some scenarios, people are using Angus Heifer Select to draft those females into different production systems. So if they're running a straight bred Angus breeding program alongside an F1 Angus Wagyu breeding program, then they can go through, better understand the genetics of those females, particularly for traits like marbling, and draft those females into and use them in the different production systems to which their genetics are aligned. Ultimately, what Angus Heifer Select is doing, as I said, is enabling us to make more informed selection decisions. So alongside the other sources of information which we're currently using in a lot of commercial operations to identify and select our replacement heifers, so things alongside their weights, the structure of those animals, the temperament or docility of those animals, we can combine all those different sources of information to make more informed selection decisions regarding the heifer replacements that we use in our production systems. Likewise, we can, by better understanding the genetics of those females, we can help inform our future bull purchasing decisions. So we can identify what the relative strengths and weaknesses of the genetics in our female herd are, and therefore tailor and really target bulls which can get better genetics of our female herd going forward. One of the other things, by identifying individual sires of those heifers, is enables us to better understand bull reproductive performance. So we know in a lot of multi-sire joining programs that some individual bulls get the majority of calves, others get less calves, and in some cases some get no calves. So by understanding how many progeny by each sire that are represented within that group of heifers, then we can really start to understand the reproductive performance of those bulls. By understanding pedigree or the sire information of those animals, we can start to manage inbreeding better within a commercial operation. And there's also marketing opportunities which it presents. So if we have the genetics of our females described, then if we're trying to sell those animals, then we can market it with the Angus Heifer Select information and have a marketing advantage when trying to sell those. Likewise, if we're trying to market their steer progeny, then we have some idea of what the genetics of those females are and can describe them. So the Angus Heifer Select results are all reported in a different fashion to the traditional breeding values or EBVs that are produced within the Trans-Tasman Angus Cattle Evaluation. So they're reported as an intuitive 0 to 100 score, so that they range between 0 to 100 for each trait, where a value of 50 represents the average genetic merit of other commercial heifers who've been tested with Angus Heifer Select. They are comparable across different herds, so we can use it to see where those heifers fit relative to all those other heifers which have been tested in other herds with Angus Heifer Select. And the higher values, so that the values closer to 100 compared to 0, the higher the genetic prediction for a particular trait identifies and indicates females which are predicted to be carrying genetics that will produce more of that trait. So be it more weaning weight, more mature cow weight or more milk, so higher mature cow weight, higher milk, and then we can go through and identify, I guess based on the description of those traits, which females are carrying the genetics which are most aligned with your breeding objective. So if we understand that the traits for which genetic prediction are provided, there are a range of traits relating to attributes which affect the profitability of the cow-calf breeding enterprise. So we have calving ease direct, giving an indication of differences in calving difficulty in 2-year-old heifers. Weaning weight or differences in the weight of progeny at 200 days due to the growth genetics of those females. Likewise, the milk genetic prediction, which is giving us differences in the weaning weight or 200-day weight of the calves from females due to the differences in the maternal attributes or the milking ability of those females. Yearling weight, the differences in the weight of their progeny at 400 days due to their genetics for growth. And mature cow weight, differences in their weight at maturity or standardised to a 5-year breeding female due to their genetics. Alongside the cow-calf traits, we also have some traits which relate, 4 traits which relate to different profitability of Angus animals for carcass attributes. So we have carcass weight giving us differences in the progeny in terms of dressed carcass weight at 750 days of age. Eye muscle area, so differences in a standard carcass, differences in the size of the eye muscle in their progeny. Likewise, rib fat in a standard carcass, differences in the fat depth at their rib site. And likewise, intramuscular fat or marbling, differences in a standard carcass in the amounts of marbling that we'll see in the progeny from a heifer. So there's 9 traits across the different parts of the production system. Alongside of those, also within Angus Heifer Select, use a total breeding value, which goes through and weights those different traits to come up with a prediction of those heifers who will, in the majority of commercial grain and grass finishing production systems, reflect those with the genetics which are most aligned with improving overall profitability. And that total breeding value is reported in 2 ways. It's reported on a 0 to 100 scale, but also as a star rating, so on a 0 to 5 stars, based on their overall profitability of their genetics. Angus Heifer Select results are all reported via a powerful online report centre. So that powerful online report centre enables you to go in and access the results on any heifers which you've been able to test with Angus Heifer Select. It also has some kind of interactive slider bars and filters which enable you to put in your desired selection criteria and really easily identify those heifers which are carrying the genetics which are aligned with your breeding objective. Likewise, there's a comprehensive report centre which enables you to really go through and analyse those results and scrutinise the genetics on any particular group of heifers which you've tested. So things like the trait comparison report, which enables you to plot the distribution of animals for 2 particular traits. So whether we're balancing up calving ease with marbling, for instance, or sale weight with marbling, we can go through it and start to identify those that are carrying genetics that might be favourable for both those traits at the same time. And within that, we can go through on the distribution. We can select individuals, we can highlight different groups, and they will come out in an associated report that we might select for use within our breeding program. Likewise, simple trait distribution reports, which enable us to see the distribution that we have for the different breeding values, genetic predictions for each particular trait. So how accurate are the Angus Heifer Select genetic predictions? And that's a really key thing that we need to consider. So we're starting now to be able to go in and, based on a DNA sample, predict the breeding value of commercial animals for these different traits. And if we look on the graph, then it really depends on whether those animals have a sire identified as to what the level of accuracy is. So where we have a sire, an individual sire has been identified, then the accuracy of the Angus Heifer Select genetic predictions is around the equivalent of if we had a normal EBV in the Trans-Tasman Angus cattle evaluation of around 45 to 50%. So starting to get up to a really a level where it's a reliable breeding value. If there's no sire information, then we're more down in that 30 to 35% range of the accuracy of those. So it's still well above the minimum accuracy thresholds which are used, say, in the Trans-Tasman Angus cattle evaluation for the publishing of EBVs, so that they still be considered quite reliable breeding values, particularly when we're trying to select groups of animals. But if we're trying to maximise the accuracy of these genetic predictions, then having an individual sire identified is a really key thing to consider. If by comparison we put in the accuracy and look, well, how do the accuracy of the Angus Heifer Select genetic predictions compare to the breeding values being produced within the Trans-Tasman Angus cattle evaluation, then you can see it depends on the trait, but the average accuracy, if we look here, say, of animals born in 2018 across the different breeding values, so the seed stock animals in Australia, we can see the accuracies are more around that 55 to 60% range. So the Angus Heifer Select values are below that, as we would expect, because we don't have performance information on these animals, but they're still starting to approach similar levels of accuracy and are at a level of accuracy where we can use them in our selection with confidence. So the ordering process, if you're interested in accessing Angus Heifer Select, is first of all, Angus Heifer Select is only available to members of Angus Australia, so you need to become a member to access this service. It's commercialised and delivered to industry through Angus Australia. Get Angus Australia and Angus Heifer Select order form from the Angus Australia website. Get your DNA sample collection kits. So again, we can collect either hair or TSUs, or using the Allflex TSU sampling equipment. Really review, and I encourage people to review the DNA profiles on any of those sires to check. And if you're buying registered bulls from a seed stock herd who is genomically testing those bulls, then that's all there for you. You can check that on the Angus Australia website, and those profiles can be used to assign the individual sires. Alternatively, you have the option, if you've got a DNA sample on those bulls, to genotype those through Angus Australia, and that will facilitate the sire verification. So once we go through, you've got your DNA samples collected, filled in your order form, return those to Angus Australia, and Angus Heifer Select will be performed for you. So Angus Heifer Select, which is important to reflect, is delivered to the Angus breeders in Australia in partnership with our genotyping partners, so Zoetis and Neogen. It can be ordered through Angus Australia from both those organisations. And those results which we are reporting on Angus Heifer Select are powered by the different genotyping technologies which are provided by those two companies. So the Angus Ultra Low Density in the case of Neogen, or the HD50K for Angus product for if it's tested via Zoetis. And of course, in association with the Angus Australia Genomic Reference Population. So those three different sources of information are used in the production of those Angus Heifer Select values, and we're proud to partner with both Neogen and Zoetis in delivering this product to commercial Angus breeders in Australia. Retail price is around $40, so $40.45 per animal if tested through Neogen, or $42.65 if the genotyping is done through Zoetis. If it's done through Neogen with hair samples, then there is an additional $3.30 surcharge which does apply. For further information about Angus Heifer Select, there's a range of information on the Angus Australia website, and also information available from staff at Angus Australia or the different genetic specialists with both Neogen and Zoetis.